Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here, we have a plan to talk today to Stefan. Stefan is the person over there who is waving the hand through the air. And we are going to talk maybe about sci-fi. Stefan makes board games, we will ask why. Stefan has not been published yet, but is that something that Stefan wants to get? We'll talk about Stefan's life and motivations and everything else. Board games, board games, I'm not going to shout. Hello, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. And this is episode 313 of Busy Beats and Board Game Bladder. I'm going to be carrying on for the next 87 episodes every day at 10 a.m. UK time. And so, Stefan, please, let me ask you. Firstly, I do apologize. How can you tell me how to pronounce your surname? I should have asked before the show. Lucha?
No, it's Luca. It's Luca. Yeah,
okay.
And actually that's the surname, and Stefan is the first name. Is that how it works in English?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I just felt like I should say that we have with us Stefan Luca, and we had a wee chat. We are both part of a Discord channel from Brian from Tabletop Polish or Polish, depending on how you read it. It's a bit of a pun. And it's a lovely place, this Discord, called the place where, we get a chance to vent, we get a chance to talk about everything. And there's a really nice community there. And I asked everyone, hey, would you fancy coming on to this Discord? And then what did you say? And a quick hello to Hal. It's lovely to see you.
Hi.
But Stefan, so then what did you say? You said...
I was actually really worried that I don't have a lot to talk about since I'm an unpublished game designer, or more specifically an amateur game designer. But you reassured me that it's like a show between friends. It's two friends talking and discussing all sorts of stuff, and that that gave me some peace of mind. And I thought, why not?
Yeah, for sure. And so many fun, brilliant things have been started by that simple thought of why not? And so I would encourage anyone who's out there who's thinking, well, honestly, I know I've had a few board game designers and publishers and whatnot, but I just want it to be a show of chatting to everyone and getting to know what's going on in the board gaming space, whether it's you as a designer, you as a player. Let's talk about what draws you into gaming, what attracts you to gaming, because there's so many other things. I mean, there's sci-fi. Let's maybe compare sci-fi to gaming. Let's talk about why you aren't, or maybe you are. Are you just a creative person? Let's get to that all in a hot minute. So let's move on to recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So what have been some of your recent highlights? I yesterday finished reading Book 6 of the Usagi Jimbo Saga. I think that is such a wonderful book. It starts off with Book 6. The Saga volume is kind of like 3 graphic novels all stuck together. So you're getting I'm not going to say free for the price of one, because firstly, it was out of print. It's like
Yeah. Okay.
all of these books are kind of out of print, and it was kind of more expensive, but it's also a nicer copy. But I wish I'd bought it at the time. I basically hadn't read any Usagi Yojimbo for the past 8 years, and the start of 2021, I've just been catching up with everything and maybe paying a wee bit more than I would have had to if I had bought it when it was released. But anyway, it starts off with a tragedy with Usagi and falling in love, and then a sense of loss, and then it goes on into a horror story where it's all about Jay. For those who don't know Usagi, Jay is like this vengeful demonic spirit, just like Jason from Friday the 13th, and there's a little bit of a pun there, Jay-san, if you want to apply the honorific, although that is never applied in the comic. Stan Sakai is never quite that obvious and crude, but there it keeps taking over the body of different people, and this is about the next chapter in that, and it's this kind of horror volume that spans a few hundred pages, and then at the end you've got a book which is just about a series of light, I'm not going to say fluffy, but because there is a lot of killing still, but it is still set in an anthropomorphic universe where it's all about rabbit bodyguards, and that is what I've been reading. I did not get a chance to play any games yesterday, but that was my highlight.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I have I don't know what this series they offer. So are they graphic novels?
Yes. So just to reach down here, this is Stan Sakai, Volume 6. Let me make myself bigger. And hello, Bones John. Lovely to see you. Hello, Scott Moore, who is excited for sci-fi. And hello, Nicholas Stratia.
Hello.
So this is Saga, and it was basically cheaper for me to buy this than the free books, and it was a much nicer volume, because if you compare this size to the book size, you can see it's just having it a wee bit bigger. It's more similar to the original comic size. Also, let's look at a page of the art here. Actually, that's a big plot twist. Let me go to that.
Okay.
So here's the page. You can see all the characters are based on different animals. There's lovely vistas with rural Japan and just enjoying the world around you. Stan Sakai, for those who don't know, if I turn to the back pages, is there's a photo of Stan Sakai, and there's a really nice description. A Japanese person living in America.
Oh, okay.
And so I am all about that. And one day I am going to just spend a Sunday just doing a big review of all my Usagi Yojimbo stuff that I've got. Maybe. But hello, Xate. It is lovely to see you. Are you into comics?
Yeah, I like them. I used to read a lot of web comics back in the day, back in the early days of the internet. But print comics were pretty hard to find around here. So I've only read a few graphic novels, like some very, very well-known ones, like what's it called? Transmetropolitan. And
I've
Watchmen.
that one myself.
Yeah, Transmetropolitan is interesting. I think it's no, I'm thinking of another one. It's kind of a sci-fi dystopia, but in near future, and the main character is a journalist who is kind of anti-system. So that's what I really liked about it. Yeah. My recent highlights, it's not very recent, but last weekend we played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time, and I think I've played once before, like 20 years ago. And so basically you could say that it was my first game ever. So
that sounds Really awesome. So you're kind of going back to your roots in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When we played it the first time, well, actually, I played it the first time we were in high school. So I don't think we appreciated it that much back then because we didn't quite get the narrative or the story-driven aspect of the game. We were more interested in, the combat, the dungeon crawling, roll for damage or whatever. And this time, since we're all a little bit older, we really like the storytelling aspect of the game. I think that's what they liked more than actual combat and stuff like that.
It's definitely interesting. Maybe earlier on, the combat, the rolling of the dice, it was something simpler to draw you in, whereas now it's like, okay, what we want is to value the storytelling, because as you grow older, I definitely find that you sort of start to shift what exactly you value. And I've definitely started valuing stories and social connections over the roll of a die, for example.
Yeah, yeah. If well, the game maybe if you eliminate
Not,
the
I
the
mean, I don't
rolling.
want to. Sorry, I don't want to kind of pass the value judgments. I mean, it's just what's important to you and knowing what's important to you and what you're getting out of a thing. I don't want to say to anyone who's listening who's like, wait a minute, I'm all about the rolling of the dice. I mean, frankly, if
Yeah.
that's what you enjoyed, then great for you. And I don't want to take away from that.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, there's probably some players that like to optimize their character and do some really cool stuff with their items and the spells and stuff like that. And I think the rolling dice part of the game is important because it gives some structure. Otherwise, it's just collaborative storytelling, and not a lot of people are keen doing that. Such a free form type. Yeah, it gives a structure to, and also, for example, for the players as opposed to the DM. I think they need to know that the DM is going by some rules and and not just willy-nilly murdering them. Oh, by the way, really funny. For some reason, one of the players had this idea that Dungeons and Dragons meant that the players are supposed to do their best to survive, and the dungeon master is doing their best to kill them.
Okay.
And they played the game having this mindset from the start. Were really panicked throughout the whole game that I was about to murder them in some way. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think there were lots of people, especially in the early days of D&D, that were getting this impression that it's a one against many game. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people took that approach. It feels like, I mean, I don't want to say moving towards that sort of improv theater space where, sure, if you look at, what's that one, Fiasco,
Oh yeah.
where there's no GM and everyone's just making up a thing together, and that's a little bit more towards improv theater, if you know what I mean. And sometimes that can just be overwhelming. You don't want to deal with all of that, and you want something that's a little bit more constrained. You want to say, okay, hey, don't look at me. I don't want my time in the spotlight. I want to step forward when I feel comfortable and then recede when I don't feel comfortable. And that's a nice thing about having the whole party and having everyone to share that responsibility of where the story goes. Scott
Yeah.
says, I started playing an old school RPG called Dragon Warriors a couple of years ago. It's all about the story, collaborative narrative creation. That sounds good. I think I've heard of it, but don't know anything about it. Yourself, Luke, Stefan?
Yeah. It sounds familiar, but I don't know anything about it. But it sounds cool.
And Hal says, I enjoy that D&D has both. Sometimes I'm not feeling like doing the more performative parts of D&D, but I can still sit back a bit and take part by bashing some goblins. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, even if you're not going to be the center of the figurative stage, you can still be contributing to the combat part of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just going to chuck some links in case you are interested in finding out, hey, who is this Stefan Luca anyway? Well, you can check out those links or check them out later. So unless anybody else or you have any other recent events or highlights that you want to share? Is there anything that you feel the need to share right now? Because if not, let's go to the questionably quick question.
Yay!
So, first question, where exactly are you? What time is it? Where I am, it is 10:16. I am in Glasgow, in the central belt of Scotland. Where are you?
It's 12:16. I'm in Romania, in a town called Bacău. It's as a region, it's in the region of Moldova, which I'm not sure if that says anything to anyone, but it's right next to the other very well-known region of Transylvania. Yeah.
So, Transylvania, I mean, is that actually a creepy place, or does it just have that reputation because of,
Dracula?
Yeah.
It's definitely different from the rest of Romania. If you historically, it's not been a part of Romania as long as the other parts of Romania have been part of the country. They were under Austro-Hungarian rule for much longer. I think it's 200 or 300 years. So that tends to change the culture and the landscape quite a bit. Many would say they're quite a bit more civilized than the rest of us, which is kind of fair to say. You can see some really different, some really nice architecture in the houses, and most of the castles that are built in Romania are built in Transylvania. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been to what is Dracula's castle. It's not that creepy.
So Dracula's castle, is that actually Vlad the Impaler's castle?
Yeah. It's more actually the one that they do the touristy thing of Dracula's castle is more like a palace. I don't think it's ever been used as defensive fortification. Yeah. And they have, I don't know if they're still doing it, because this was quite a few years ago. They had like this, what's it called? Like a spooky corridor where you go through and zombies jump up and scare you.
Oh, like a haunted house where it's kind of for Halloween and okay, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, someone's online board game.
Yep, Scott's always the international person as far as Eastern Europe goes. I mean, it's not very international, but playing an online board game this evening with someone living near Brasov, different parts of Romania.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just want to, before we move on from that, you said Transylvanians are somehow more civilized. More civilized how?
Well, for example, looking at the like one, I don't know. I don't want to judge anyone strictly based on this, but if you look at like the number of people that go to vote, I'm not questioning what they're voting, but simply going to cast your vote. I mean, I know a lot of people. There's a discussion like about this, saying that I don't vote, so I can't take responsibility for the current politics. But there's also people that say that because you don't vote, you don't get to complain. Anyway, the idea is that in that part of the country, people tend to go to vote a lot more than in these parts where they're apathetic voters.
So they're a bit more politically minded. They're maybe investigating current affairs a bit more, or keeping in touch with what's going on in the rest of the world, potentially even.
Yeah. And the cities look nice and they're clean. Yeah.
Okay. And good morning, Alex. It is lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
And we are just on the questionably quick question section. So, let me ask you, do you prefer books or podcasts?
I think books, because I've only recently gotten into the podcasts.
And what is one of your favorite books?
Let's see. I'm going to just say off the top of my head, I really enjoyed any book by Isaac Asimov. Yeah, I'm kind of a old school sci-fi fan, a classic sci-fi. Yeah, I'm not very good at favorite things questions because I really can't decide.
It's totally fair. The important thing isn't that we say, okay, this is your number one favorite forever, just to get a vague sense of what you're about. Now, do you prefer meeples or plastic figurines?
I think meeples. I think even though the game that I'm working on has plastic figurines, I like the feel of the wooden meeples.
Yeah, and if you haven't painted them also, those plastic figurines don't even look that great.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, it's looks better on the cardboard. Like somehow they're more similar as a material.
It's interesting because now you mention it, how Spirit Island did quite a clever thing of all the foreign elements are sculpted out of plastic, so all the invaders come out of plastic, and it's but then all the friendly units are made out of wood, and that's a nice dichotomy that existed there. Let's talk a wee bit more about games. Would you prefer to play? I know there's a lot more that goes into it, but would you prefer to play one game that lasts 2 hours, or would you prefer to play 5 games that last 20 minutes?
I'm going to go for one game that lasts 5 hours.
5 hours, okay.
What time did you say?
I said 2 hours, but
okay.
So 2 hours is just not enough for you.
Okay.
You want a bit more meat on your games.
Yeah. If I.
Hello, Kylie and Ben, and it's lovely to see you. So, yeah, that is okay. What is your favorite shortest game? The shortest game that you can think of that you like?
We recently got Sushi Go.
Okay.
I think. Oh, is it stretching time?
I mean, it's entirely optional, and you can keep talking while we're stretching.
Okay.
Stretchy time.
We recently played Sushi Go. I think it's wonderful, and it's a game that we play with our parents, with my parents, which I think is rare. I think it's rare that we find a game that they can thoroughly enjoy, because we've tried with different games. We've tried introducing them, bringing one game at a time, and very few passed the bar.
So maybe they were just a little bit too complicated, or maybe they were like, it doesn't have any good hook in it to bring them in.
Yeah, I think one problem they have is that they can't correlate the theme with the gameplay, or they don't care to do that. They prefer abstract games mostly. Yeah. They like, for example, for us, I'm talking about me and my partner. For us, it's very important. The theme is very important because so the game mechanisms are that much more interesting if they correlate well with the theme. So maybe something that a game mechanism that for our parents say doesn't do anything because they don't see it in the context of the game theme.
And then it just becomes added rules complexity,
Yeah.
because maybe this extra rule makes it a lot more thematic for you, and okay, it adds a little bit more complexity, but it draws you into the game. Whereas for your parents, they are not making quite the same connection, so for them it's just an added rule with not much payoff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's interesting. And so, I mean, Sushi Go, for sure, it does have something cute to draw you in with all the cute sushi faces. And you could argue, well, it's going round and it's like the carousel, you're picking and passing, and that's vaguely thematic, but it's not as if it's maybe taking that as a vague inspiration in a Keynesian manner, you might say. In the same way that Lost Cities, yes, it's about exploration, and as you go in, it's actually pretty thematic if you think about it. Lost Cities. I don't know what you think of Lost Cities. Have you
I
played
haven't
that
played
one?
it. No, I haven't played it. Okay.
Basically, each time you embark upon an expedition, you lose 20 points at the start, and so you need to make sure that you have at least 20 points or more. If you've got 21 points, well, you did all that work and you only got 1 point. And so if you go for every single color and you get 21 points in each, well, you've done kind of badly. Whereas what you want to do is you want to push ahead and get those. And there's that sense of when you're sitting out on an expedition, are you getting enough? And never being able to turn back. It's got that sense of adventure, even though it doesn't really have a direct analog. It's maybe captures a little bit of the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you can do a game mechanism that makes you think of the theme of the game without being something direct, I think that's awesome.
Scott mentions reading a book of short stories by Alfred Bester, who I had not heard of, to be honest, but is apparently one of the inventors of modern sci-fi back in the 1950s. Are you familiar with Alfred Bester?
I am familiar, but I can't recall any. I think I've read some stories at one time, but I'm not sure.
Let me actually ask you if you know Henry Kuttner. The back cover is kind of torn, but are you familiar with Henry Kuttner? And this is a book full of really weird stuff. For example, on the back it tells you that there's 17, for example, the proud robot. Never was there an inventor quite like Gallagher. He did his best work when drunk, but could never remember what he invented when he sobered up. So it's a story about an inventor who wakes up and then there's a robot who's very arrogant, and it's like, what's going on here? And all of these short descriptions really tease at your brain. It's like, what's going on here? But unlike a lot of short stories which don't really fulfill that promise, I would say that at least for that collection, what I've read, they really fulfill that promise of it's not exactly what people might call sci-fi. It's more stories about fantastical things, about someone being able to predict the future and having a philosophical question and a moral question in their mind because of that. It's about the fantastical, although this isn't, I wasn't going to ask you this until later, but how would you define sci-fi? I mean, where exactly does that line come?
I think it's been it's a line that's been blurred recently, and I don't worry very much about this is sci-fi or this is not sci-fi. I think anything that has some fantastical elements that, well, actually you need to separate it from fantasy or for but
so maybe fantasy is that the differences in our reality are because of the world, and maybe in sci-fi the differences are because of human invention. Is that
Yeah.
a reasonable way to split it up?
Yeah, yeah. In my mind, I'm not sure if this is a fair definition. In my mind, if it has magic, it's fantasy. If it has anything else other than magic, it's sci-fi. I think a lot of 90% of action movies recently are have a bit of sci-fi, though they're not they're not classified as such. So, for example, I haven't watched the Marvel movies, but
Mm-mm.
yeah, but a lot of them basically have sci-fi elements.
I mean, there's a kind of futuristic aspect of,
Yeah,
okay, even like Batman, all these crazy gadgets and what's
yeah,
going on
yeah,
with, or Iron Man, where Tony Stark kind of has this crazy suit and
yeah.
whoa,
That's all sci-fi. But they're not classified as such. I think I don't think they when you look it up on IMDb or whatever. I don't think it says sci-fi. I think it says action adventure or whatever.
mm-mm. And I guess it's like, okay, especially nowadays, we can draw inspiration from everything. And you could have a romantic comedy that was actually a sci-fi story. I
Yeah, yeah.
mean, why
As
not?
as you
So,
as you said before, I think sci-fi is like the jumping point for these stories. It's something to give. It's something to take a situation out of the ordinary and give something to the reader to think about, or to the viewer. Yeah.
well,
So
that feels like a really nice way to kind of get a vague line under there. And if anyone else has any thoughts on how these things should be defined, then feel free to let us know, of course. I mean, I'm always open to input. But let's go to our last opening section, as I like to call them. I mean, I've just decided that that's what I'm going to call it right now, as I never liked to call it before. But hey, let's roll with it. Our third opening section is the brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Brilliant things. So, Stefan, do you have something brilliant that you would like to give a shout out to?
I've recently, recently play tested a game that a friend from Twitter is making, which is a sci-fi action game. I'm not sure what the definition is. It's what's the type of game, like Gloomhaven? What type of game would you call it?
Dungeon crawling?
Yeah, it's something like a dungeon crawler, but again, very like the story drives the action, and I think it's very interesting, and I liked it a lot. And the person that is doing this game, is making this game, has some experience in writing sci-fi, so I thought the game was really, really well done. For anyone who's interested, it's called Spaceship 47. Actually, like, can I type it in? No.
Okay, I think I will be able to find the Twitter account of that
Yeah.
because I think they replied to you just earlier.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you talk a wee bit about that and let us know, do you often playtest things while I grab that Twitter account?
I haven't playtested a lot of things because I've already recently joined this community, but I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it quite a lot. I also recently playtested the latest iteration of Cloud Shifters by Maya. Yeah. I think you've had her on the show. I think I've saw that show. Yeah, and as they said in the chat, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. You get to see the raw form of the game.
And yeah, that's really interesting because, okay, playtesting it's easy to understand why it's a good thing for the person whose game is being playtested. For them, it's all about getting that feedback, improving the game. Without playtesting, you're not going to be able to check, hey, does my mental model of how this game would be played actually match up to how it is played? But also for the person playtesting it, you get to, I mean, playing games is fun, even if it's not necessarily the best game. It's still a good time. You're still ultimately playing something that's meant to be enjoyable. It's like if I've got someone who's sending me, if I had Stan Sakai, who was like, hey, do you want to read the next script for the next book of the Saga Jump? I would be like, yeah, hell yeah. And I don't know how much feedback, but I would be very happy to spend. And for me, there would be the excitement of getting to read it ahead of time, getting to get a glimpse into the creative process. If you've not made a lot of your own games before, it can be really interesting to see how other people go through that. If you've and just getting an insight, even if you have made a lot of stuff yourself, getting an insight into the mind of someone else. And so I think that playtesting and also having that appreciation, having that impact, because maybe I say something and it wouldn't be down to the designer or the writer, whatever I'm giving feedback on, to necessarily change something based on that feedback, but maybe they do. And when they do, it's like, hey, that thing got changed. Like I want to say, look, I wasn't credited, but what's Helvetic? That game, Misty, that's the game. So in Misty, I played it at Cannes 2019, I want to say. And then I was like, hey, wait a minute, this one bit of it, there's no reason to bring gender into it. You don't need to have like boys and girls and have the two boys and girls next to each other to score bonus points. What's all that about? And I felt quite strongly about that. And then I said, you know what it should be is just that if you have a boy and a boy, that's also positive. If you have a girl and a girl, it's just also positive. It doesn't need to be about sexual relationships or romantic relationships. You can assume that it's just friendships, like humans like to be together. Do you know what I mean? And then for the final game, it is just wee smiley faces. And so they've taken out all of the gender. And I'm very proud that I was able to make that small contribution to make sure that my values, because Hadi does share those values, it's just that Hadi maybe hadn't thought of that whilst making the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one can think of literally everything.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice feeling to know you've contributed at least a little bit.
100%, and feeling like, okay, because of me, this is going to be slightly more welcoming, slightly more accessible to everyone, regardless of, orientation, or it's not going to be heteronormative or anything like that. So, anyway, but so playtesting. Brilliant thing. And let me actually, in an unprecedented move, let me talk about Stefan Luca. Stefan Luca's a brilliant thing. Because, you came on to the show and you took a jump on. And I would like to take a moment. Stefan, tell us about some things that you're proud of. And I know that sometimes it can feel a wee bit weird trying to big up yourself, but tell us a couple of things that you are proud of.
Let me just start with one thing that I forgot to say on the recent highlights. Sure. Yesterday I got my my vaccination, so I'm pretty proud of that. yeah, really excited, and it doesn't matter for anyone, but the process was really smooth and it was really good, and we were really worried that we would have to stand in line for a long time, but everything was great. What can I say about myself? We started, my partner and I, we started the board game hobby when we were living together at college. And our first board game was Rummy, a set of very small set like this. that we bought with the last money that we had. We went shopping for some essential items like food and stuff, and we had like the equivalent of like €5 left. And with the last money, we bought the Rummy set, and I think we've played it every night for like a month or something like that. And then slowly started getting more and more games into the collection. Yeah, I've always been interested in board games, but like I said, when I was a teenager or I was in high school, I think there was only one shop in Romania that sold board games, and it was in the capital city, so not where I live. So it was harder for me to get into it, but yeah, it was worth the wait. It was worth the wait. Yeah, I'm also proud that I'm moving along slowly but surely, moving along with the development of the Interregnum, the game. Yeah.
That
Not
sounds generally positive. So you are a creative soul, you're getting stuff done, you're giving yourself the space to engage in things with your partner. And it
Yeah.
sounds like, from what I understand, you have generally positive relationships with the people around you. And so, I just want to say, yeah, let's hear it for Stefan Luca. I don't want to just bring you on here and blow smoke up your posterior, but hey, figuratively speaking, I've got to think of a better metaphor for that. But I'm not just bringing you here to throw random compliments and praise at you, but let's just acknowledge that, yeah, there's something brilliant about you. So, for anybody in the chat, as we move on, please feel free to comment, ask questions, from like, follow, all that stuff. And we are now meeting Stefan Luca. So let's start off going back a wee bit. Let's talk about Romania. Yeah, you said that there's not so many comics and graphic novels being sold over there. Do you get how many board game shops do you have? Talk us through the scene in your city if you can.
I think there's like 3 shops. One in no, there's like 2 shops in the physical shops. I mean, brick and mortar shops in the capital, and maybe a couple of more in the western part in Transylvania, where we said earlier that it's a bit more civilized. And we also had one at one time. So where I live, it's quite a small town. But we did have at one point a board game cafe, which was brilliant. I really liked it, but for some reason, actually, I think I know the reason. At one point, they had to move to another location, and for a brick and mortar shop, if they're not in a prime location in the center of the city, I think they slowly went under, which was sad. But at least they didn't get caught up in 2020 and had to close anyway. So
That's true.
Yeah. So the board game. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's all good. Today's your day. Go ahead.
I just want to give like a shout out. The board game scene in Romania is kind of saved by a person called Mihai Ungureanu, which does a yearly board game convention, which is the largest in Romania. I think the only one in Romania, but it's brilliant. They have an unpublished designer place. You can bring and playtest your games. They also have a board game design competition, and also everything else that you can find at a regular convention. And that's actually where we went, and where we went with the Interregnum, with the early prototype, and we actually won the design competition. This was in 2019. And yeah, if I'd love actually, it's 2020 has been it's been a rough year, so they didn't do it this year. But I hope they do it in 2021 because it's way in November. Not sure if it's going to clear up by then. Yeah, exactly.
No, that is really awesome, and congratulations on the win. How
Yeah,
did
thank you.
that feel? I imagine it must have, yeah, tell us. Sorry, I'm not going to even hypothesize when you're right here to tell me.
Um, we sent the game beforehand for the judges to playtest. So I scrambled everything together in the box for the prototype. We printed everything that we thought was needed. Also made a quick rule book. And I think, by the way, uh, if you're struggling or struggling is a bad word. Sorry. If you're a game designer and want to move forward on your project, these game design competitions, I think, are awesome because it gives you a goal and it gives you something gives you a push to finish your design, to do something concrete with the game. Because a lot of times, or actually for me, a lot of the times it was a lot of rules were somewhere in the middle. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go with some elements of the game, or some rules. I just said I'll figure it out later. But once you know you need to submit it for a design, you need to make a decision, and it really helped me. It really helped me to finalize the design. So yeah, we sent it, but we also went to the convention, and that's where we also played it with the judges because obviously they didn't understand the rules very well. It was the first time for me writing rule books. Obviously, they a
And
lot
how
of
many
things.
entries are there in a typical year for something like this? Is it basically just Romanians who are able to enter? Is that what it's all about? Building up the pool of talent in Romania?
I think that's where the idea came from. They wanted to build a community in Romania. But the year when we also participated, there was also someone from Belgium, I think. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but for sure it was someone either from Belgium or from France also participating, and there were like 10 designers there, which is a good number, I think, for a small convention. It was a pretty small convention because that's the community here. Yeah, and for example, in the year before, in 2018, the winner of the design competition went on to publish their game on Kickstarter, and they had a lot of success. So I think they also helped them. They gave them a push along.
No, that's really cool, and it's, yeah, I would like to. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to be the case that you will see a game and then you think, okay, this is clearly a French game. I mean, you might be able to guess, or hey, this is definitely a German game, or this is clearly a Romanian game, or this is clearly a British game. I think that, sure, German Euro games are a particular style for sure, but there's also all sorts of games, other games coming out of Germany. And I'm trying to remember where Maya's from. Is Maya Romanian or?
She's Croatian.
Thank you. Like, I'm not going to say that, okay, you've got this separate, it's going to be who you interact with, I guess, to a certain extent. But certainly in this global day and age where we're playtesting online, certainly the last year and a bit, or where,
Yeah.
but even now we do still have, okay, because of time zones, I am more likely to be playing some games with people from UK or indeed Nigeria than I am likely to be playing games with someone from America personally.
Yeah.
And but let's take a big step back right to the start. And let me ask you, at the start of your life, okay, what's the
Okay.
first thing you can remember?
I remember my earliest memories. Actually, do you actually mean my earliest
Yeah,
memory?
yes.
Okay. My earliest memory was I think I was crawling between rooms in my parents' house, and I think my parents had someone over, and I was watching them talk. Yeah, so it's a pretty early memory because I don't remember much else.
Wow.
Yeah, I also remember I have an older brother, and I also have a lot of memories with him.
So you've just got the one sibling. It sounds like a happy childhood.
Yeah, yeah, I can't complain. It's
And at what point did you start to get interested in sci-fi, in board gaming? And at what point do you think that, yeah, talk us through your school years and early childhood.
my dad also reads a lot of sci-fi. Actually, he may read more than me. He actually, for sure, he reads a lot more than me. So he had these classic sci-fi novels in the bookshelf. So obviously, one day I got a book off the bookshelf and started reading, and because they were there, and but I also really liked it. I think the escapism. I think all sci-fi is optimistic, even though some stories may portray like dystopian futures or generally bad things. I think at the base level, it's optimistic because we get to go past this point in our history and get to the future. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Okay, so if it's a dystopian future, it suggests that we have survived for another however many years, but then
Yeah.
to arrive at this horrible dystopian future, how can you say that's optimistic? Sorry. I do not. Yeah, I'm very confused. Please, I don't know.
It's optimistic until the point where the very horrible thing happens in the movie/book. So it's optimistic up until that point.
Well, I mean, if you look at, I mean, would you say that Terminator 2, if you ignore all the other ones, but just the first two, where it's okay, there is this whole Judgment Day and then the robots take over, and we see the future in the films, where it's all like the battlegrounds where the person gets sent back from the future. Now,
Yeah.
do you that I guess the idea is that okay, the future can be altered, like the future can be even improved because
Yeah.
of this Terminator going back and then something changing the course of history. And sure, that's maybe a bad example. Yeah, that is actually quite optimistic because it's all about averting the disaster. Sorry,
It doesn't end up as optimistic at the end. But up until the Skynet coming online, I think it's a pretty good feature. I think it's yeah, and at least we didn't perish as a species. Yeah, because you know, at least climate disasters didn't stop us, or pandemics, or yeah. Maybe recently a lot of things look optimistic.
yeah,
I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist. I know it's not very cool to be an optimist. I know it's
no. I think that it's just fine and dandy. I am all for being optimistic. I think that we have to be realistic, and I think that it's damaging if we say, "Oh, no matter what we do, things will turn out okay." I think that's problematic. I think we need to take individual responsibility. For example, if we say, okay, the planet's going. My one issue with The Day After Tomorrow, if you remember that film, that's about this big ecological disaster, and then, but then at the end, they're looking down at the Earth, and it's like, oh wow, it's so beautiful, kind of saying, you know what, it doesn't matter, it's all going to turn out okay, and it's healing itself. And I feel like that ending, it's kind of saying, hey, it doesn't matter what we're doing because everything's going to be okay. When really what we should be doing is we should be taking personal, not just personal, but also personal responsibility for what's going on in society, saying, hey, corporations, you need to put really big mandates in. Let's have government kind of stepping in to say, no, you can't do this sort of pollution, or no, you can't do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. You can't be blindly optimistic without taking action. You can't just say everything will turn out fine and not do anything about it. I'm optimistic in the sense that once it's out of my power to do something, I hope it goes well.
That is totally fair. Now, we've talked about how you got into sci-fi, and let's talk about how you got into gaming.
Do you mean board gaming, or generally doesn't matter?
I'm actually, let's talk specifically about board gaming, but if that was via video gaming or role-playing, tell us about that journey.
We tried, like I said, we tried playing some Dungeons and Dragons way back with my friends. I tried way back in high school, so I was definitely always interested because we had the internet, so we weren't cut off from the world. So even though we didn't have board game shops and stuff like that in Romania, we definitely knew there were such things as called board games. So I really liked the idea, but it took me until college to get into the board games. And as far as video games go, I think I've played more video games than board games because I've had a lot more time to do so. Yeah, with me and my brother, we've always been video gamers. We were always interested in computers. It's an interesting scene in Romania for. I'm not sure if I should call myself out like this, but back in the 1990s, piracy was really, really big in Romania because, again, we didn't have access to a lot of stuff. We didn't have access to them in the stores. So the people that were slightly technically they had some technical aptitudes, built their computers. Like me and my brother, we built our computer, and we connected our computer to the network that was being built up in the neighborhood. So it was like we didn't have internet at that time, but we did have. Well, actually, we did have internet, but it was really slow. But we have the neighborhood network. Like we had, to connect to the network, so my brother went up on the roof of our building with the cable in his hand and threw the cable across the street, and someone across the street was there to catch it and bring it. So we're in an apartment building, so we had to bring it up to their house. Yeah. And connect us to the network. It was interesting times because it was like the Wild West of the internet back then.
Old school LAN networks.
Yeah. There were a lot of people back then. So like I think like 50 computers were connected to the neighborhood network, And because the protocols, or whatever you would call them, I'm not very good at this. They weren't very rigorous in what you could and couldn't do on the network. You would sometimes find that someone was playing a game on your computer via the network, because you could do that. You could you could just navigate through the file explorer to their computer and run the executable file from their computer, and suddenly you would see your computer run very, very slowly and wonder why. Yeah.
No, I definitely have thoughts on that whole era. A quick hello. Hello, Bodhi. It's
Hi.
lovely to see you jump in. Our friend, well, one of our many friends from the Netherlands. A fellow Netherlander, because I've decided that on this show I'm going to call all Dutch people Netherlanders. Because, Dutch have decided it's just a terrible word, so let's try to change English. But I remember, back in the early days of the internet, going to my siblings' university where they were studying, and like, okay, I'm going to try and get all this stuff from the internet, and having a floppy disk and trying to have, like, you had maybe 3 or 4 pictures, and they weren't very good quality pictures, 3 or 4 pictures on a floppy disk, and then the Dreamcast where you had to pay for one every minute cost you like 10 pence or something like that. So it was crazy. I was like, okay, let's go online and quickly try to find out, what we want to find out, and let's go on to Wikipedia, and then once we've got Wikipedia up, we'll disconnect, and then we would kind of read through, and then and so it would be.
This was before search engines, so you had to just you had to know where you were going on the internet. There wasn't searching. It wasn't searching for anything. There was just you knew you had a list of addresses you want to go to, and that's where you would go. Mortal Kombat 3 on 18 floppy disks.
I remember in the days of Superplay, because I bought the last 2 ever issues of that. That was when I got into the magazine. And then I went back and then bought all the earlier issues, and then I read through them, and it was such a joy. And in a sense, I'm not going to say that Edge isn't a good magazine. I'm actually subscribed to that. I think I might have a perfect collection from like issue 50 up to like whatever it is today. But there's something really nice when, this was a short run. This was a magazine that was just for one console. And it's like a snapshot of that moment in time. It's a snapshot of the innocence, where you see, people are actually writing crazy URLs, which are so complicated, and no one was thinking, hey, come on. It's like this StreamYard link, which I sent to you. It's like this random series of digits and letters at the top of, like it's GQG. What's that all about? That would be the kind of thing when back in the old days you'd actually have to type yourself, or
that was really beautifully put. It's a snapshot in time.
But then I guess if you've got a longer running thing like Edge magazine, you can say that's that's one magazine where they had the Doom review where famously they said, wouldn't it be nice if you could speak to all these monsters? And a lot of people chastised them for this, saying that's not the kind of game it's meant to be, which is very true. But anyway, at what point did you start investigating physical games? And Nicholas knows exactly what I'm talking about. Making your own lists and indexes of websites, always having to type http:// and every single bit of it. So it's crazy times. Anyway,
my just as a regarding this subject, my dad used to tell me about even earlier computers where games would be you'd buy the magazine. I'm not old enough to have caught this, but you would buy the magazine that had the code that you would code into the computer, and then you could play the game. So there was no, there weren't floppy disks. You had to code in the game. Yeah, kind of reminds me of that.
Yes, with like, I used to be really into old retro stuff. I've got a book there which is all about the earliest arcade machines, and I remember my era was really the Mega Drive and the SNES. That was kind of my era, so I'm probably dating myself a wee bit here. But I had like some books, and I was really interested in understanding where we came from. And yeah, that was all it was in the days of like the Spectrum, where okay, type these things and then a funny thing will happen. But yeah, so yeah, getting into gaming, do you, and let's talk about video games and board games. Like, are they pretty much a continuum in your minds? Like performative RPGs, like Dungeons and Dragons, with the kind of success strategy style games, like, you know, the dice rolling in Dungeons and Dragons, or video games like Dungeons and Dragons, which is also a video game these days.
No, they're definitely different itches that they scratch. For example, I remember that when I was in grade school, I think it's called, I did the kids around, my classmates would sometimes gather around, and I would make up these stories for them to tell to them. And they really enjoyed it, and even though I didn't know back then about Dungeons and Dragons or collaborative storytelling, I used to tell them that, you know, you can come up with the next part of the story, and I'll fill in the details and tell you all the next day. So it was interesting parallel to playing D&D now. But yeah, I actually don't think board games and RPGs are that similar. I think also for me, they also kind of scratch a different part of the brain. And getting into board games, we used to, so like I said, we bought Rummy and played it for a month straight. And then we said, okay, that's enough. Let's try something else. And then we got Pandemic, I think, was the next game that we bought, because, you know, we weren't exposed to the larger board game community. So we basically bought what was very popular at that time. So we got Pandemic, and we played it a lot. And I kind of sometimes I miss that part of our board game hobby, where we used to play a game until we were exhausted of it, rather than now when we buy a game and play it a couple of times and then, okay, let's try something else. I know that's kind of a tangent.
No, it's not. I'm just I was trying to work out what was the first game you mentioned. Did you say Rummy?
Yeah.
As in with traditional playing cards?
Yeah. Well, actually, wait, is that not Rummy? I'm thinking. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the one with the little plastic key tiles, and on the front there's a smiley face. Let me see if there's a picture I can find on.
They're kind of like
Rummy Cup and Pandemic are the first two board games that you can remember playing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty modern. I mean, a lot of people start off on the Monopoly, Risk, maybe some terrible games. I mean, Stratego isn't the worst game, but then for your second game to be, Rummy Cup I think might have been a Spiel des Jahres winner, and then for your second game to be Pandemic, I mean, that's pretty impressive. You're going into the good stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, now that you mention it, I did actually play Monopoly that was actually the first board game that we played, because it's such a well-known game. I think everyone has knows someone that had a Monopoly set at one point in their childhood. And in our case, I think we were the ones in our building that had the game, and we would meet with all the other kids in our building downstairs and play Monopoly for however long we we played until we got bored of it. I don't remember actually finishing any game back then.
Yeah, it can sometimes.
And from children,
it annoys me. People say, "Oh, if you play it by the correct rules, it's fine." I'm not having this discussion every. I don't want to have this discussion every month, but no, it's not fine. That's all I'm going to say on it. Anyway, these are some pictures that, according to the license, I am allowed to use for commercial purposes. So thank you to the people who. This is the game that you are talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, you're saying, what year did it win Spiel des Jahres?
I'm not sure if it won the Spiel des Jahres. I think it might have. I will have to double check that.
Because this is a game that basically we've played with. I've played with my parents when we were very young, and I think they've also played it when they were. So I think this is repackaging, because I think this is actually a really old game. I think that my parents used to play with their parents or something like that. I think it's a really, really old game, actually.
I can't see a way to very quickly check what awards it's gotten. So definitely don't say that I'm correct. But if someone can either correct me or dispute me, either way is fine. But it may or may not have won the Spiel des Jahres, but I vaguely remember, and I'm not. That if you want to find out, this is where you come for opinions and banter. This is if you come for the
for straight facts.
I might. Yeah, I'm not going to keep investigating that. Sorry, everyone. So, then at some point, you decided that you want to be a game designer. Why? I mean, are you just someone who reads sci-fi? Have you tried writing your own sci-fi books? Have you written anything? Have you got, you've certainly written a lot of words on your blog. I mean, you certainly seem to be a bit of a writer there. Have you ever tried writing a book? Do you try to create whatever you love? Are you a creative person, Stefan? Or are you a designer?
I like to think that I am. I'm not sure I'm sure how much I succeed, actually. And I've tried writing stuff before, but it's never seen the light of day. I've only written it for myself and maybe for my family or something. But I do like to create. Sometimes I would. I'm at evening at home and I think, would I like to play something, or would I like to grab my notepad and I don't know, think of a short story or add some more, think of a game or something like that. And most of the times I prefer to express what my ideas are, put them down on paper. I think it's an enjoyable way to spend my time, even though 90% of the stuff that I write down don't see the light of day. But it's something that I enjoy. And I think it's healthy for me to do it.
Yeah, for sure, having an appreciation of that creative process. And I think everyone needs a bit of a balance. It doesn't mean that everyone needs to rush into creation, but for sure, everyone, it's a new way to enjoy and appreciate what you're doing. And massive thanks to Bodhi. I just gave you 1,000 Bezzy bonuses. So apparently 1980, Rummikub won the Spiel des Jahres. 1983, De Spil van het Jaar, and 1993 it won Gra Roku. I do not know those second two, but that second one sounds a bit Netherlandish.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's one such a large time span between awards.
I think this is also because sometimes you need to have the game actually produced in that location. So
okay.
apparently the game came out in 1977, and so it would have only come out in German. Like the German edition would have been 79, which would have, or 80, which would have allowed it to win the 80 Spiel des Jahres. And then maybe in the Netherlands it came out a couple of years later, and in Poland maybe it's a smaller market, so Poland gave it, could only award it in 93.
Okay.
Speaking about Netherlandish people or Netherlanders, hello Dutch Yoda.
Netherlander Yoda.
But yeah, so let me ask actually, so we've talked, let me quickly give you a couple of minutes to just talk about your games, what you're working on, and what you're actually trying to do with them. Do you know what I mean? What's your goal? Is it just to have this appreciation, the deeper understanding of the medium that you've fallen in love with? Or is it like financial gain? Is it fame? Is it the satisfaction? Do you have a big yearning to have your name in a shop? Do you want, what's your greatest desire? Not just what would be ideal, but what are you bothered by? Do you know what I mean?
I try not to think too much about it, because I worry that it's going to change my, right now designing the game is something that I do, and it gives me a lot of enjoyment to work on the game. And I think if I try to think about monetary gain or becoming famous or stuff like that, it's going to alter the way that I think about the game and think about the creative process. So right now, what would give me a lot of pleasure is people playing my game and enjoying it, and more people playing it and more people enjoying it, I think would give me more pleasure. Which is why I'm trying to publish it. I just want to see it in people's hands, and want people to say that they liked it, basically.
That makes sense. And so you're wanting to have a positive impact on others and have that appreciation and that sense that you have maybe sparked a little bit of joy or wonderment or whatever emotion.
Yeah, and I want people to say, "Oh yeah, well, this is a game that scratches an itch that isn't scratched by other games in the same category. This is a game that falls in the same category, but is not quite the same thing, and it gives another gameplay experience." Yeah.
And if you could imagine your dream projects right now, if you knew that you had the time and the ability to make it the way that you wanted, at the start of the show you talked about you like the 5-hour epics. What would you ideally like? Firstly, what is tell us 2 or 3 or like 1, 2 or 3 or however many board games that you love that you feel like you have this emotional connection to. And secondly, can you tell us what would be your dream project for yourself?
Um, let's see. One game I always like to mention is Power Grid, the classic Power Grid. I always enjoy playing it. Again, I can't. I'm not very good at choosing favorites. I need to have the entire collection in front of my eyes, so I can. I'm not a very picky player or viewer or reader. I like a lot of things, and I like a lot of games that, for example, the people in my gaming group said, it's not not good that good. Um, I enjoy them. I enjoy a lot of games. Let's say, recently we've acquired Scifi, and I really enjoyed it. Even though, go ahead.
So no. I'm just laughing because there's such a strong emotional reaction to Scythe. I mean, it is one of those success stories that you don't need, just because I laugh, it doesn't mean that to have something that needs to be said. I just appreciate the way. Yeah, there we go. Mention
Yeah.
Scythe, and
Yeah.
Scythe goes, Scythe! Love heart! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! And
Yeah.
then exclamation mark before the love hearts, just in case you didn't know that Xate has some strong emotions about it. Bodhi, the way that Power Grid's resource purchasing works blew my mind. Was one of my first proper board games. Yeah, this is kind of like the pinnacle of old school Euro games, a lot of people might say. And I wouldn't disagree with them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
The way that the resource market in Power Grid, the game doesn't say that you can use it. Depleting the resource market is something that you can do. It doesn't mention it, I think, in the rules, but by playing it, you realize it's a viable strategy, and I think that's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, having some mechanisms that, as you understand them, the ramifications flow naturally. It's not like a clunky. I mean, sorry to keep talking about Magic the Gathering, but in Magic the Gathering, there used to be this rule where you could block with a creature and then it steals its damage, but while the damage is on the stack, as they say, so it's about to deal its damage, and before it receives any damage, then you can sacrifice it to another card effect. So it might actually kill the other creature, but you also sacrifice it for some, to gain some life, because you've got something where, hey, it's a dark, whatever. But and that's kind of a rule that doesn't make any sense. And they changed that to, just to explain, Magic the Gathering continues to improve. They did take that out of the rules, but it's not like that kind of what's going on. What? You can do that? It's more like, hey, wait a minute. I can having it flow naturally. And, the pinnacle of that sort of emergent complexity, I would argue strongly, is Go. For sure. Like, you have the eyes, you have to think about, okay, if you have the diagonal connections, then in terms of game rules, it's not a connection. But as soon as you've got a diagonal connection, that means that if one person places there, you can place the other side and vice versa. So you're kind of covering more ground. And then you think, hey, wait a minute, if I go up and then two along, that's very hard to actually block me here. And you can sort of kill things as long as you're mindful of what's around it and then the way that everything interacts. But whether it's an abstract strategy game or... So you mentioned Power Grid, you mentioned Scythe. These are a couple of games that you absolutely adore.
As I said, I'm looking towards right now, looking towards my game collection, trying to remember, because I'm terrible at choosing favorites. Let me think.
I mean, 2 is enough if you are struggling.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. I also enjoyed Concordia.
really nice hand management system, and like at the end, the way that certain things are being multiplied by other things, so it encourages you to go heavy in on one of them, but you still, if you go wide, then it makes the game easier. So it's like those kinds of contrasting motivations, and so you're not quite sure what to do. That's a really interesting game.
Yeah. I think it allows for some for different strategies, but at the same time, as you said, it's generally a better rule to diversify. And as my partner is pointing out, I also really enjoyed Dune. So not she just brought it over right now to remind me. Oh yeah, you liked this game a lot. So
Show us since you've got it.
the original or the reprint of the original strategy game. I haven't played Dune Imperium. I think it's called, the new one. Have you played the new one?
I have not played any version of Dune personally. I've read a bit about it. I think in terms of games that take more than 3 hours, I've not played that many. Like, not out of the games that you've mentioned, like Power Grid, Sci-fi, those are fairly, shorter. Are not like, epic games. Like Concordia, again, it's like, okay, Concordia, you can definitely play your first game in a couple of hours. That's, you'll definitely done, if not like 90 minutes. But like, what I've not played Dune, I would like to play. I would like to play Twilight Imperium, but the ones that I have played, Eclipse, the big trading game, I can't remember what that's called. If someone, Sidereal Confluence, something like that, Sidereal Confluence, and Demaker, I think that's, and I've played maybe 3 or 4 18xx games. So if we take out the 18xx games, I'm sure, but like, I don't feel like there are something that I would regularly go in for and say, okay. And Scott says, Dune Imperium is a good game, but not nearly as thematic as Dune.
Yeah.
Says Scott. I don't know why I'm putting a Scott has an announcer voice today. I should try and do a bad Brummie accent in future. That can be my one of my rewards that you can purchase in future if you want to hear me do a bad accent of somewhere. And I will try my best for 5 minutes to speak in that accent and hopefully try not to offend anyone.
By the way, diplomacy, I think is in my mind is a neighbor to Dune somehow, and somehow also related to Go, in the sense that you were talking about earlier, that there's a lot of emergent strategy. Yeah, so these were diplomacy was a big inspiration for when.
True story. I was going to play diplomacy in March 2020. I'm fairly sure that is, when we were going. Anyway, I found basically a bunch of people who play diplomacy regularly in London, and they were quite happy to say, okay, if you want to come early and have a quick recap of the rules, but I was all set to spend, a bit of the Saturday just learning and making sure that I wasn't keeping everyone down. And then just Sunday, we were going to spend the whole day playing this. It's like a whole diplomacy club. And now they've just started playing online. And
weirdly enough, diplomacy, I think, lends itself to online play pretty well, because when I used to play it, I mostly play it online because it's really hard to get together 6 people and have them agree to play for 6 hours or however long it takes. So I used to play a lot online, and I think it lends itself pretty well to online play, because you can kind of role play your nation, or some people do like role play the ambassador of their nation. So you have the 6 nations, I think. So you have people writing like war telegrams or something like that. I'm a representative of His Majesty the King Edward or whatever. And I thought that was pretty cool for coming from the players that play online.
No,
Yeah.
I get it, and I guess my issue with starting a game with strangers online is it feels like a bigger commitment. Do you know what I mean? If it's like, okay, this is a one-day event, it's going to be a big thing, it's going to be focused, and I will set this day apart. Plus, the couple of hours that it takes me to learn the rules, but I kind of know what I'm getting in for anyway. I know that it's meant to be a game that can turn friends into enemies, but hey, I don't know any of these people. So hopefully we can be friends afterwards. Maybe it can turn strangers into friends. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or if it turns strangers into enemies, then it's not the worst thing in the world. At least But if I'm playing a day, then okay, I've got this big event. But if it's like, okay, we will play, make sure you take one turn every day for the next so often, that's a big commitment. And if after 3 days I realize, hey, wait a minute, I don't like it so much, there's no escape plan. I can't just drop the game without.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't do that because you're a nice person. A lot of players just stop playing, and that's it. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and like, I mean, it is all from people with this one London club, so it's kind of not complete strangers. So you trust them to not just stop playing. But again, I don't want to necessarily be locked into a week or more of playing. Even if I'm not playing it all the time, it's going to be on my mind, and it's going to be like, I need to do this. And sometimes then also the fact that it's on your mind, it becomes this thing that almost fills your entire day. I just know myself. If I were able to talk, all the time, all the day, I could let myself get obsessed, and that could easily take over a month, and then be like, I'm doing nothing, but I just part of me doesn't want to fall down that rabbit hole. And so by saying we are playing it, it's going to be one day at least. Yes, it might be a good few hours of the day. Yes, it might be 8 hours, whatever it is. But anyway, let's talk about your own designs, which was what I was asking. What would be your dream project?
Oh, right now the dream project is the one that I'm working on. I can't think of anything. I would dream project meaning like if I had all the resources available or something, because
like imagine if I said, what would be the game that you would most be proud of? Like, let's say looking ahead 50 years. You're looking back, maybe you've made just one game, maybe you've made, a series of games, and then maybe one of those is a big epic game that fulfills all the things that you personally value in games. Like, what would you be most proud to have made as a game? Is there something that you can think, okay, this is the kind of game that I want to be my contribution to gaming, if that's not too grandiose a term?
Oh yeah, it's pretty difficult for me to say right now. I do have some things that I want to do regarding perhaps my own background as a Romanian, and I want to tell some stories from here. But it's as far as who I am distilled in game form. Basically, the Interregnum is that game, because when I started this game, I didn't think about stuff like how long it's going to take me, how much work or how much money, or how if it's viable as a product, or how much is going to cost to create, or some stuff like that. I'm still not thinking very intensely, unfortunately, about all these things. So I've gone all out on this project. Yeah. Obviously, now that some time has passed and I've gone through different iterations, there are some stuff that I've left behind, some elements of the game that, as you said, is something that I want to say through board games, but didn't quite fit in this game. So there are some themes, there are some stuff that I've left for other games now. Yeah, I like, for example, I wanted the game to have a more, so it's a strategy game.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us the 1 minute elevator pitch or 36
Yeah.
for whatever you can.
It's a strategy game where you play a kingdom in a shattered empire. So you're part of a bigger empire, but you're only one small part. And I wanted the game to have the strategic elements that games in this category have. So you move your fleets around and you build stuff. But I also wanted players to feel a connection to their populations, is what I call them, for the citizens, and to their colonists and to their immigrants. And I wanted players to feel like they are carrying this burden of taking care of their populations. And it still has some of these elements, but it doesn't have everything that I wanted. So I have some stuff left behind that I'm definitely going to include in another project.
Yeah. Feels like you're still at the point where you're just enjoying the journey, and there's something wonderful about that, where you're not feeling, okay, this is what I want to achieve. It's just that you're enjoying the design work for its own sake. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it also, I think that I've started worrying or thinking about the potentially commercial aspect of publishing the game, and I think in some ways the limitations that arise from this aspect also give some challenges, and also are interesting to tackle. So you can't just create your, well, actually you can, but creating a game in a vacuum and not thinking
whatever you want to do.
exactly. But if you give yourself some limitations, then you have some challenges that might be interesting to overcome. So I think that I'm at that point right now.
So you know what you're trying to do. You're now trying to push into how best to do these things, and you're learning along the way. You're learning your techniques, and you're continuing to push towards something until hopefully you will be at the point where you feel, okay, this is ready to mass produce, to share with the world. I mean, I'm guessing from what you've been telling me that is your goal, that you're making all this stuff with looking ahead to mass production.
Yeah.
And let me take a left turn to ask you the big question of, what's the best sci-fi show? I mean, I know this is kind of going to cause a lot of arguments, so this is where I'm not expecting you to say, boom, this is the best sci-fi show, and anyone who disagrees is wrong, but yeah.
I can say that I've been enjoying. I've been catching up to The Expanse right now, which maybe it's not the best, but it's one of the best, definitely, out there. Let me see. What I also go ahead.
Doctor Who?
I've only watched a few episodes in the David Tennant Doctor era. Yeah, there's so much stuff to watch, to do, and I haven't never got into it properly in Doctor Who because there's so much of it to watch.
And if you're one of these people who feels like you need to start on episode 1, then, I mean, you can start from the relaunch, but then all the old black and white things, I think lots of them are a bit slow, I'm not going to lie. And think that...
Are you a Doctor Who fan?
No, I wouldn't say I was a Doctor Who fan. I've not watched half of them, but
Hmm.
if someone was like, "Hey, but do you really want to watch this episode?" and do you want, let's say, let's say in May, let's pretend in May, in a couple of months, let's pretend that it's safe to meet people, and let's pretend that maybe I'm on a date. Let's
Okay.
pretend that maybe we want to have a sort of date at one of our houses. Let's pretend that the other person is really into Doctor Who, or let's pretend that they're just slightly into Doctor Who, and it's like, okay, let's put on a Doctor Who episode that neither of us have seen. I would be
Hmm.
down for that, and maybe look up on the internet, okay, what's a good Doctor Who episode? Or, frankly, I might just ask Jason, because Jason is really, really big into Doctor Who.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I it's a little bit B movie. Some of the endings are a bit, whoa, it feels a bit artificial the way everything twists around, if you know what I mean. Sometimes the way that
Hmm.
think people are saved doesn't quite make sense. Okay, I'll just stretch my arms and stand up for 1 minute. But no, I'm not a big Doctor Who fan.
Okay. Okay.
But
Also,
I appreciate it.
mm-hmm.
I just know that it's one of these things where. So let's talk about The Expanse. Why is that your favorite at the minute?
I've liked the seasons that came before a lot. It's refreshing. It's in a time frame where I think it's not very explored. So it's in the far future, but not quite that far. Um, we're in the expanse. People are exploring the solar system, but they're not quite, they're not exploring the galaxy or doing faster than light travel or stuff like that. It's more closer to us in a sense, like the big difference.
Something a bit more believable.
Yeah, the big difference between what we're doing right now in the present and the expanse is that they discovered like this really efficient I think, what was it called? Anyway, they discovered a drive that is really efficient and works on water or something like that, and that allows them to, to get to other places in the solar system more quickly or more efficiently, because stuff also takes time. And I think that it feels like it's in the near future, though it's really quite sci-fi. Uh, as I was saying, it feels optimistic. And also, I think they've done a lot of things right in the details. Um, for someone that is into classic sci-fi, we like to see things that make sense. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, things that you could see work.
I've heard that referred to, I might be getting it completely wrong, as hard sci fi, where it's really grounded in reality, whereas soft sci fi, it's okay, this vague time traveling thing happens, but we don't know how it'll work. Whereas hard sci fi is, yeah, this will definitely happen in the next,
Mm-hmm.
at some point we can definitely see that it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the definition. I'm not quite sure myself. Uh, yeah, and also yeah, as Nicholas is saying, doesn't take itself too seriously.
Oh no,
Once it,
I think Nicholas is talking about Classic Who makes a lot more
oh,
sense at
okay.
times than a bunch of the newer stuff. Classic
Oh,
Who
okay.
takes itself not as seriously, whilst also taking on themes like genocide and fascism in very concrete ways. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely quite interesting. I assume you're talking about classic Doctor Who there.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Oh, okay.
Nicholas says soft sci fi is more like fantasy, talking about that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
But please let me know if I've correctly understood what you're saying, Nicholas. But
Yeah.
talking about positivity and optimism in sci-fi, I've heard these Star Trek, Star Wars people saying, yeah, Star Wars, it's saying that, okay, we're going to go and it's all about, well, Star Wars, some people say it's actually a fantasy film, but let's not, like, people say, oh yeah, Star Wars, it's all about the aggression, about people having differences and people having, battles, whereas Star Trek, yes, there are battles, but it's really about, okay, it's a post-scarcity society, which is kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
everyone has everything that we want, and going out and just, yeah.
Star Trek is definitely an example of optimistic sci-fi, and I really like that about it. Again, I've only watched I don't know what's the exact name of that series. The New Frontier, I think, is the name. Yeah.
So when you watch this stuff, do you watch it in Romanian?
No, in English, but with like Romanian subtitles. Sometimes it's easier for us Romanians, even though we understand the English. We're so used to having subtitles up on the screen that we're also kind of perceiving the message through text as well. So we're also hearing, but also reading at the same time. Another show that I really enjoyed recently, Raised by Wolves, was on HBO. It was really interesting. It did end with a really weird plot twist at the end. But if you have you seen it, by the way? I actually don't want to spoil it for anyone.
I've not seen it, and assume that people in the chat have not seen it.
Okay. I'm just going to say
what I can do is, do you want me to put up a spoiler banner for 30 seconds?
No, it's fine because I just wanted to say these are things that you can see like in the trailer, so it's not really spoiling anything. But the character of mother and father are basically androids, and the actors did an amazing job, and their portrayal of androids was really great. For everything from their facial expressions to how they moved, and I guess what they did say was up to the writers, not to the actors, but it was really, really well done. Yeah. It brought in the way, if you look up promotional images, the way that these two characters are dressed is definitely a throwback or an homage given to the like the 60s B-movie sci-fi or the classic sci-fi movies back then. They're dressed in like shiny aluminum skin tight suits or something like that, and I think it was refreshing to see. Maybe for some people it was maybe a bit confusing because we're used to seeing a lot of black, a lot of flashy elements on sci-fi clothes right now, and I thought it was interesting.
I think it's important to be willing to go a little bit against the grain, to try to explore these other things, whether that's having, feathers on dinosaurs, or whether that's having slightly different clothes in your sci-fi setting. I mean, it brings a unique aspect to what you're doing. And I mean, I'm cognizant of the time a wee bit. We've gotten to 11:50 UK time, which is...
Can I just say that the time just flew past? I can't believe how fast it went. It's been really fun.
But it's been really nice to chat about. I would like to... before we finish, do you have anything to say about your journey so far, about the Interregnum? I guess this is sort of, as you said, it's about you in some sense. Like everyone makes art that reflects them. When I make in a bind or yogi, that reflects my desire to see. Like it's a really cheeky, arrogant thing of, hey, can I get people to do sit-ups in a pub? And how far can I push people? And also kind of trying to push people outside their comfort zones. I reined it back for the published version. Don't worry, you don't actually have to do any sit-ups anymore, but you might get quite contorted. But there used to be cards in the deck that you did actually have to spin around so many times, and then you had to hop around the table, or you had to actually do a sit-up, or you had to jump.
That's really cool.
It was far more crazy than it actually ended up as a printed version, because I was like, no. And I think I also took out some of the interaction, even though in the expansion that I printed myself. But it reflects your own personality, and it reflects your belief. Like I can trace all these things saying, this is a different part of my personality, and this sees the power. That's a different part of my personality which cares about the way things are and exploring the system of rules. And but do you think that, let's say you get this out, do you think your second game, I just had some vague thing about, is this, how much you is this? How much sum total of everything that you believe is the Interregnum? How much you is it? How much is it you trying to make something commercial to appeal to other people? Because don't get me wrong, once you start thinking about other people, your stuff starts becoming even better from the perspective of other people to an extent, because it's not just about the designer, it's a conversation between you and the recipient.
But, definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to just nail down into that for maybe 1 minute.
Yeah, definitely. Well, for example, we've started. Hi, Michael. I've started. So I've playtested, obviously, and we also playtested on the at the game convention in 2019. But I've also started playtesting online with folks, and we started the conversation by me saying that I'd prefer a 5-hour game to five games. So I'm trying to strike a balance between what I want to show in this game, I want to bring with this game, but also what people would enjoy, because that's basically my main focus right now. Giving my personality or my thoughts on game design in this game, but also obviously if people don't enjoy it, it's failed. I've failed when presenting this. Right now I'm trying to get a balance between these. So it's not necessarily trying to make it commercially viable, but trying to make sure that people will enjoy it, make sure people will play it more than once. And for this reason, I'm trying to bring it to a maximum of 2 hours, because that seems like a cutoff point for a lot of people.
Yeah, even though you're happy with that 5-hour epic, you're aware that lots of other people aren't. So
yeah. So maybe in one game group, a game will take 5 hours if that's the way that they prefer to. Like they take their time between turns.
It's all about the discussion. Like I know Scifi, you can play it in 20 minutes if it's in a convention setting, and you just want a quick demo of the mechanisms. It's like, wow, this was so good. And then when I play it, it's about 40 minutes, an hour, because there's a lot of discussion. We're having fun with it. And then to someone else who said, actually, when I talked about I've not played that many games that have been more than 3 hours. I forgot Hunta. Hunta's a pretty long game, and but Tifa Tashin is Hunta kind of refined, but then you can spread it out and fill it in with all that table talk again, because that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and speaking of the Interregnum, one other thing that I think I really wanted to have in the game was the fact that even though it's a sci-fi strategy game and people are moving their ships about and stuff, it's a peaceful game. I think that's where my optimism that I was speaking about earlier really reflects in the game. There's no, you can't destroy another player's fleet, you can't attack them or kill their citizens or whatever stuff that you can possibly do in other games. So it's more like a territory control. It's economic. So you're trying to gain the upper hand by gaining some resources, by building some stuff over there, and also maybe blocking someone from building something on a space you're interested in. But it doesn't feature combat in the regular sense, and that's something I'm proud of.
but that's really cool. And let me do a wee recap of everything. If you have enjoyed this, if you want to check me out, then I am, of course, Stuff by Bez, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com to go out and buy some print on demand copy of the Eldeck or Cataclysm, twitter.com/stuffbybez, where I share the most probably, except for here, instagram.com/stuffbybez for occasional pictures, twitch.tv/stuffbybez, where I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time, youtube.com/stuffbybez for the old episodes, and stuffbybez.com/discord if you want to join my Discord, where you can share pictures of cats or pictures of food or just have a nice natter. And I try to keep it a healthy, positive atmosphere. And we also have occasional game jams. I'm thinking that maybe maybe in the next season, so somewhere after episode 400, when I come back, maybe I'll relaunch with a game jam. That seems like an appropriate thing to do. I don't know. And if you want to check out a bunch of stuff from Stefan Luca, how can people find you?
Easiest way is the Twitter. I think it's I'm not sure. Okay. Thank you. And they also have some articles written on the development blog. I also have a Facebook page, but it's not, I don't update it. But the easiest way is the Twitter and the Twitter and the blog. And yeah.
And that is a way to get in touch. And yeah, what have we talked about so far today? We've talked about Usagi Yojimbo, we talked about Dungeons and Dragons and Transylvania and what civilization means, about Sushi Go, about playtasting. Shout out to Spaceship 47. Mihai Guranu, am I saying that correctly?
Mihai Unguranu.
Mihai Unguranu, who sets up like Romania's either biggest or possibly only board game convention, managing to win a competition in 2019. Congratulations, that's great work. And yeah, talking about design competitions, having that goal, having that motivation, talking about the early days of the internet and networking everything together, and Dreamcast and floppy disks, and yeah, then talking about physical games, talking about Rummikub, which it's apparently won the Game of the Year Germany
3 times.
Dutch one and or Netherlander one, I should say, and the
Polish one.
Thank you, Polish one. Diplomacy, Power Grid, and Scifi and Dune and Concordia, some games that you just really love. Talking about the nature of a dream project, how it's really difficult at this point to even think what we want to do, and sometimes balancing that against just enjoying the process of it a wee bit. And then briefly talking about what makes for good sci-fi, talking about Doctor Who and Optimism in some sci-fi, the Expanse, and Nicholas says that yes, they were talking about Doctor Who for anyone who isn't part of the Twitter and was wondering. I was correct, but it also applies to some sci-fi outside of Doctor Who as well. And if you're wondering what it is, as in taking its sci-fi can take itself not so seriously whilst also taking on very serious themes. And then, yeah, talking about what other sci-fi things, that was pretty much it. We talked about an author that I'd never heard of. That's, I think, that, the one that Scott mentions, the person who apparently made sci-fi in the early days, Alfred Bester, that's the one. Would you recommend them? Should I check them out?
It's not one of my favorite authors in the sense that I haven't read that much from him, but definitely check out.
So, yeah, it sounds like it's one of those things where it's more interesting in a historical context rather than because it still stands up today.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of classic sci-fi probably doesn't stand up so well today. Like they're doing Dune, new Dune adaptation. And in the new Dune adaptation, they had to gender swap, I think, a character or two. Or did they? No, I'm actually thinking of the Foundation adaptation. They're doing a series by the series Foundation by Isaac Asimov, and they had to gender swap a couple of characters because the author is a guy from the 60s, and he didn't write basically any female characters in the books, which is not to say that they're not bad books, but you need context to
Yeah, and if you're adapting something, if you're turning a book into a film or something like that, you're already changing quite a bunch of things. So, I
personally don't agree with people that complain when they see a movie adaptation or something and say, oh, it's not like the books or the comic books or whatever. It's a different. It's an adaptation. You can consider it something new entirely.
The original's still there. The original's still there to enjoy.
Exactly.
I mean, look, if someone were to say, hey, do you want to watch all the Terminator movies? I would be like, do we want to maybe watch the first two and then we can watch the other ones on a different night? Because the first two, those are really good movies, I think, that still hold up. Whereas let's be honest, the ones afterwards, they're just kind of action flicks and there's no enemy.
The social aspects were already discussed in the previous one. Yeah.
But we have talked about, and then we talked a bit about your own game, the Interregnum, and that might be coming at some point. But I guess ultimately, watch this space, and if you want to come on a future Friday and let me make you bigger, and if you want to pop on a future Friday and maybe talk a wee bit more about this, you are always welcome.
Sure. These are some of the characters that don't have any.
Are you able to tilt the camera down, or just because it's okay? Wow, that is gorgeous.
Yeah. Gaston Garcia is the artist behind the paintings. He's really great. I think you liked one of his small sketches.
Well, yeah, I think it's really been a pleasure. And the first thing I want to say is thank you, Stefan Luca. It has genuinely been such a delight. to
Oh,
chat
thank you.
about this and that. And yeah, genuinely, as I always say, Friendly Friday Forum, it's meant to be a bit more of a magazine to kind of pop on and say, hey, here's something. And yeah, let me know beforehand if there's something specific you want to show off. But like, can just let me know the day before and have you on as part of this thing. Let us know how you're progressing or how you've managed to, what
Sure.
you've been up to that week, and you can jump on video.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say thank you everyone who's been part of
Thank you.
yeah, everyone who's contributed such lovely messages. Thank you, Xate, my number one moderator. Thank you. But also love to all the moderators in the chat. Thank you for everyone chatting along, Scott and Tal and John and like Michael, who just popped in at the end, and Alex and Kelly Lee and Ben and Bodie, and yeah, I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. No, we don't want this to be a competition. And yeah, thank you. Let's remember, Aquasulus is awesome. Yeah. So everyone can be awesome in their own way, but I want to say thank you very much. And at this point, that's basically it. And one final question before we finish up for good is over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. So, is there anything that you need to get done today that you're dreading or that you're looking forward to getting done today? Or anything that you want to share, whether it's exciting or boring or serious or frivolous? I am actually going to go shopping in a wee bit after this. I need to buy some toiletry type things, but I need to go to Boots basically, and I'm hoping to find something wet that I can find, some razor blades if you want. But yeah, anyway, that is something that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do bits of emailing and writing and whatnot, and do the Kickstarter update that I said I'd do yesterday, but I didn't do. But anyway, that is what I am up to. What are you up to? So, I'm so sorry, Dutch Oda. You are amazing as well, and so shout out to Dutch Oda. You are lots of love. And so yes. What are you? And Hal says, thanks, Stefan. Sci-fi isn't a genre I read much. It was interesting to hear people chatting about what they like about it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Do you have any things that you want to share that you're looking forward to doing today? I guess it's like 2:00 for you.
Yeah. I will be going back to work.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I can't say I'm excited to go back to work, but you know.
Well, it's something you have to do. We all have to do it.
Yeah, there's a saying here in Romania that says that it's somewhere where you can come back home from. So
unless you're working from home.
Yeah. yeah. But yeah, but it's something to sweeten the fact that you need to go to work, so you don't work from home. At least you have that satisfaction of getting back home.
No, that sounds like. Can I ask, what is your actual Monday to Friday? Is it like 9 to 5? Do you have that kind of job?
It's 8 to 4, but yeah, basically
8 to 4. So, what is your normal job?
I do the commercial and marketing aspect of a factory. Basically, it's more like a factory here in Baku, and it's a satisfying work. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes it's satisfying because it's something physical. Like you take raw material comes in, and finished product comes out, and it's something satisfying about doing that. and I get to tell the final customers your project is on the way finally. Yeah.
And that sounds like that's something that if you ever get up to doing your own Kickstarter, having that awareness of logistics and everything is going to set you up well.
Yeah.
But yeah, since nothing doesn't seem like anyone else has anything that they want to share, so yep, as you'll notice that the thing is slightly different now. So it says, "Don't say Dutch Yoda, say Netherlander Yoda." So that's the new thing if you put Dutch Yoda into chat.
I have to say that Netherlander Yoda song rolls off the tongue. It's brilliant.
There you go. Do you hear that? So-called Dutch Yoda, but who speaks Netherlandish. And anyway, thank you, everyone. It has been wonderful.
And thank you, Bez.
My next streams, look at stuffbybez.com/streams. If you look at that channel, where's my calendar? Tomorrow I'm drawing a bunch of pictures, which are going to be based on cats. In the evening, I'm going to be playing a game about believable lies and unbelievable truths. On Wednesday, I'm meeting Théo Rivière, which I'm really excited about. On Thursday, I'm going to be discussing working relationships with Dina Ramsey, who I'm going to be having a working relationship with, and also Peter Blenkhorn, who's currently looking for more developers. If you didn't see that, check my Twitter account, because I retweeted Peter's thing where apparently they're looking for people. And then Friday is a Friendly Friday forum, but with the Brota del Juegos people, which is two siblings. And on Saturday, I'm meeting Luke Hector. So that's an exciting week ahead. Feel free to share, spread the word. If you think that any of this stuff is something that someone else might enjoy, then please tell someone else. That's how the word spreads. If you are watching this after the fact, then this won't make any sense to you. But if you're watching this during the fact, then I am going to go and check out Declan Zappala. There are no board gamer people other than myself, Michael, and Matthew, who stream at this time. So the only board game person I tend to raid for my morning things is sometimes Idle Michael. But we are going to check out Declan Zappala to maybe enjoy a wee bit of music after this. So feel free to copy part or all of that message that I just chucked into. And unless you have any final words that you want to share, Stefan.
We just wanted to say thank you for having me on. It's been great. It's been great, and you're great. And I just can't say thank you enough.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for giving the time, and thank you for being here. Like we said at the start, you are brilliant. And that brilliance goes for Stefan. It also goes for all of you. So remember, you are brilliant. I want to firm up these arms and start doing some more push-ups. But yes, that is the end of the show. So for now, let me just put in the raid command, and it is bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. Now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. That's the end of the show. Thank you. Bye-bye.